So let's talk a little about GSM. Again, my name is John Keim. I'm the pastor of kids and students here. And so why does GSM exist? Why do we do all this stuff? Why do we do worship and games? Why do we do the Sunday gatherings? Why do we do small groups? Why do we do renewal and camp and winter retreat? Why do we do the student leadership boot camp? Why do we do the Christmas party with the seniors and alumni? Why do we do all of this stuff? Kickstart for 8th graders moving to high school, the senior banquet. Why do we do all of this stuff? All this is, GSM exists to help students take their next steps toward Christ together. Sound a little familiar? The mission of this church is to help people take their next steps toward Christ and to do it together. And that same mission carries over into student ministry here. Why? Because GSM, Granger Student Ministries, GSM isn't its own separate, isolated entity. It is a part of this church, a part of this church family. It is a part of what's going on here as God's moving in Michiana at Granger Community Church. And so it's not meant to be its own separate thing out there on its own. No, it is a part of this church family, this church body. And so even down to the core of why it exists, the mission of GSM is right there in line with why our church exists. And we're just focused on this niche, 6th through 12th grade, of students. And that's why everything we do is around that. It's towards that end. So yes, why do we play silly games? Because they're fun, because you laugh, because you kind of settle in a little bit as you're laughing and playing games and enjoying it. It gives you a chance to relax and kind of find some friends, have some community, and take a step, be ready for the message or for worship, whatever's coming next. It's all a part of what we're doing together. Why do we do renewal or camp, winter retreat? Because we know that taking a chance to hit pause on school and athletics and homework and chores and all that stuff and to get away for a weekend, for a week, to spend time with your peers, with leaders who are pouring their life into you, sharing God's love with you, we know that massively helps students take their next step towards Christ. And so that's why we do all of this stuff. It's why GSM exists, is to help you students in the room, students. Everything we're doing is to help you take your next step towards Christ together. And parents, you know that's why we're about this. It's what we do. And I thought, it was about over a decade ago now. I've been here on staff 16 years and working with students this whole time. And the last couple of years, I've been working with the kids team as well. Think about, birth through 18. And about 10 years ago, I was thinking, man, it may have been sparked by a question a parent asked me, so say I bring my kid. I bring my student. They show up, and we carve out our schedule, and we make sure we do that. We save up. We send them on their retreats. We help them get on a mission trip, and we do all these things. What's the end goal? What's your goal, John, if I bring my students, if I pour them into this? And so about 10 years ago, I spent some time praying and thinking and reflecting on that, and what would be my prayers for a student if they spent time in this? And so students, this is what my prayers are for you as you engage in GSM. Whether you're here for 7 years or 7 months, or you come in as a senior in the last semester of your year, this has been my prayer for students and for kids here at this church, is that you're in your time here in GSM, first and foremost, my biggest prayer is that you would come to meet and encounter Jesus Christ and decide to follow after him and orient your life around him, to choose to be with God and take a huge, massive step into that. First and foremost, that is my number one prayer and goal, that through this time, through whatever we do together in GSM and in Granger Kids, that you as a student will come to know who Jesus Christ is. That through our conversations, through teaching, as we show you the scriptures of what God has done, what Jesus has said, as we laugh and play games, you get to walk alongside someone who knows Jesus, who is following Jesus, that you would learn not just head knowledge about who Jesus is, but you would come to know who Jesus is and step into a relationship with him. First and foremost, that is my prayer. And if we accomplish that with every student, every kid that comes into the ministry for 18 years, for 7 years, that'd be incredible. But I didn't want to stop there. There's more that I thought about when I thought about student years. When I thought about my own student years, when I think about your students, when I think about you guys, students. My second prayer is that in your time in either in Granger Kids or now in GSM, that GSM would help you survive these adolescent years, but also thrive. My hope is that your time in GSM, in conversations and in small group and experiences, it would help you stay focused. Because there's a lot of stuff out there in your school. There's drama and there's gossip and there's unhealthy competition and there's mean stuff and there's temptations and there's boundaries. There's all sorts of stuff you're facing in your adolescent years, in these teenage years. And my hope is that GSM, being a part of this community, this family, would help you kind of survive from that And you'll not get to graduation with a bunch of regrets and remorse in your past already, but that you would actually survive that. But beyond that, you would thrive. You would find out more of who God has made you to be during these years. That you would experience that you have purpose right here, right now. You may be a teenager, you may not be able to vote in the kind of election. You can't rent a car. Most of you can't even drive a car. There's so many things that the world says you can't do, but the church doesn't. The church says if you are following Jesus, you are part of the church now, and you can have impact and purpose in your lives, in your community right now where you're at. And so, yes, it's about surviving these years, which is why we'll talk about tough stuff. We'll talk about drugs. We'll talk about sex. We'll talk about peer pressure. We'll talk about mental health and anxiety. We'll talk about stress. We'll talk about competition in school. We'll talk about all this stuff that's affecting your lives. Yes, so you can survive through that, but we'll also talk about purpose, your identity, where you belong in the family of God, so you can thrive in these years as well. And the third prayer, that after all this time, all these years and months together, that you would, again, know and follow Jesus, be surviving and thriving in your student years. And finally, that you would learn to fall in love with the local church, that you would understand what a community of Christ followers, not just students in a youth ministry, but a community of Christ followers of parents and step-parents and guardians and foster parents and grandparents and uncles and neighbors, what this local church thing is called to be. Because students, if you understand that, if you long for that, if you recognize the impact of that in your life, you can go anywhere. You can go off in the military. I've got a former student who is in the Air Force, and he got it when he was here. He understood what the church is about. His name's Tyler, and he went, and he thrived, and he continued on in his faith journey because he found a local community of believers. He found a local church, and he could keep taking steps. Because at some point, students, you move on from your student years. You move into college, the military, straight into the workforce, and you find this next season, this next chapter of your life. And if we can graduate out class after class of students who value and love the local church, the bride of Christ, then I have utmost confidence that wherever they go, you'll be all right. You'll find your way. You'll get connected into another community that will help you, that'll support you, that'll guide you along the way. And through all of that, I will say with heightening importance and awareness in my own life, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a parent. My oldest is in 5th grade, about ready to step into student ministry, with a growing awareness and importance of parents doing this together with you. Like reaching out, connecting with you, knowing that you can reach out and connect to us. I just had an amazing conversation with a parent last week about where their student's at and what's going on and some things that will help them as we move into this next year. And so this isn't a, hey, just drop your kids off for 7 years and we'll get them all fixed up and we'll graduate them together. There really is a togetherness of this. Because we get a couple hours a week with your students and we love it and it's fantastic and it's incredible and it's amazing. We're going to pour everything we have, students, into your lives. But parents, we're here with you because you're also the ones there making sure they're getting their homework done, getting after them for getting the chores not quite done, celebrating with them when they're making amazing steps in their journeys. And so parents, this is a journey with you that we want to go on. And so those are the 3 prayers I have for students. Students, if you ever wonder what I'm about, that's what I'm about. And parents, that's the transparency too. I want your students to know Jesus. I want them to survive and thrive in their student years. And I want them to fall in love with the local church. That's my goal and what we're doing. And to get at a lot of that, there's 4 kind of strategies, 4 primary things we do around here. One is the Sunday or Wednesday weekly gatherings. So just throughout the year, this time, and it's one of the things that over time, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, you know what, there's some Sundays where your students they may not remember much of what happened, but there's something to the continuity of it. I mean, we make it a priority in our family to sit down and eat family dinner at least so many nights a week. I don't know what happened last Tuesday night. I don't know what the conversation was. I don't know what we ate. But I know that in the quantity of that time that we spend together, there's quality conversations, there's quality steps that are happening out of that. And the same thing happens in GSM. In that quantity of Sundays and Wednesdays spent together, there are conversations that pop up. And there's quality of that step and those growths that happen there. So our Sunday and Wednesday gatherings, weekly gatherings. Additionally, small groups. Having small groups, having a place where you and your friends are around a circle. You got a couple leaders that are walking through this journey with you. In a large church, you can find your place in a smaller group. And so we have those environments both for middle school and high school at Granger and Elkhart. Another thing we focus a lot on is camps and retreats. I talked about it earlier, but the importance of the significance of it. And so we spend a lot of time focusing and working and making sure we have incredible retreat experiences and camp experiences. Right now, this fall, middle school will have the renewal retreat. And in winter, high school will have the high school winter retreat in February, I think it is. In summer, we have middle school camp. So we just know these events are huge in the students' development. And finally, another thing that we spend a lot of time on is events and serving and mission trips. Over the last, this summer got kind of a little wonky, but over the past 13 years, we've had 39 mission trips with like 1,400 students who have gone out and lived out their faith to show that other people matter. They've done that locally here in Michiana. We've gone to Chicago for the last 13 years. We've been to Nicaragua, the Bahamas, and then most recently to Puerto Rico, doing some hurricane relief there. So helping students actually take their faith and live it out. And not just out there on a mission trip, but right here at home as well. Because right now, there's actually students back there running some of the cameras. The camera that's on me right now is Trot. He's a middle school student, and he's back there running the camera. Hey, Trot. And we had students up here singing. I know, it's fantastic. Yeah, you can celebrate that. Helping students serve and use their gifts and the talents that God's given them right here, right now. One of the students up here is Bella, and she was singing. She led a song that we got to experience worship in. She's a high school student. And so we want to help students find ways that they can serve and use their gifts here now. So those are some of the big core strategies. A lot of things you're going to hear about. Following those things are the weekly gatherings, small group environments, events and retreats, and then mission trips and serving. So with that, that's kind of the big picture, 30,000-foot overview of GSM and what's going on with that. And to talk a little bit more specifically about what's coming up this year, specifically with the Sunday and Wednesday gatherings, I'm going to welcome Riley back up here on stage to tell you more about that.
When I was a freshman in high school, I was going into my freshman year, I was invited for the first time to go to GSM middle school camp. It was the summer going into my freshman year, so it was like the last opportunity I had to go to this thing that I had heard my classmates talking about how incredible it was. It was amazing, all that stuff. It was my last opportunity to go. And I found out that some of my friends from school, some of my teammates from the football team, they were going as well. And I wasn't exactly sure how groups were formed, but I was thinking maybe I could be with like a couple of them. And that camp experience was like, oh my goodness, whatever like this church is that's putting this together is amazing. I was going to a church in this community, and that had been the church that I had grown up in, and it's great. It was fantastic, but I experienced this kind of fresh breath of life and then opportunity. And so I got plugged in, started coming to the weekly gatherings my freshman year of high school. And my friends were coming along as well. And it was like the first opportunity, first chance that I had to go to the weekly gatherings alongside people that I saw throughout the week in my classes. And that to me was amazing. We could share that together, knowing that me and my small group guys that I was in a small group with, we had each other's backs, not only on Sunday nights, right, but throughout the week at school. It was incredible. Sophomore year, we are pumped out of our minds because we had just found out who our small group leader was going to be, and I was so excited. I was like, this year is going to be the best year. It is going to be like, there's been a lot of years, but this is going to be the best year. And then later that fall, all of a sudden, that small group leader wasn't our small group leader. And all of a sudden, we had a new small group leader, right? But the weekly gatherings were consistent. It was just this leader that switched out for me. However, that leader was incredible. They were amazing. And they were consistent with me and my group of friends. After we had just experienced somebody that we were super excited to spend more time with leaving. That leader got to know us more, and eventually junior, senior year, we would go over to their house for dinner. They would invite me and my small group in for dinner. I got to be a part of their family. They were so consistent with our group. It was incredible. Because every Sunday night, I knew that he was going to be there. And every Sunday night, I knew that he was going to have ears that were listening to whatever I had going on throughout that week, whether it was the math test that I was just not looking forward to, or it was that hockey game that I let 7 goals get by me. But I also knew that if I reached out to him on a Tuesday, he'd be all up for a meeting at the Martins right up the road. As I shared with him that my mom was just diagnosed with lymphoma. And that leader sat knee to knee with me, right? Consistency. John talked about it. That's one thing that's kind of special about the weekly gatherings that's a little bit different than camp, or a little bit different than the one middle school retreat in the fall. These Sundays and Wednesday evenings are opportunities to consistently bump elbows with distance in between the actual elbows with other students. With other students that are going through similar things that you are going through, students. To sit down and to share your life with people that might have things in common with you. And leaders that are going to care about you legitimately, right? Like John said, it's not a, just drop your student off and pick them up later, but it's saying yes to a consistent opportunity to take steps towards Christ. So as we think of these Sunday and Wednesday regular weekly gatherings, I'm going to go through some of the nuts and bolts of what to expect. Because I know that some people in this room, this might be your first event with Granger Student Ministries. And for other people, this is like your 10th. And for some people, this is like your 1,000th. But it's always helpful to kind of take a step back and maybe get prepared a little bit and to hear about what to expect. So on September 13th, when our first Sunday weekly gatherings are happening at the Granger campus, and on September 16th, on that Wednesday, we can come in and feel confident. Feel like we know what's happening. So a couple things. We're gonna sing some songs. We're gonna worship. We're going to have space carved out to allow students to appropriately tell God, I'm aware of you. God, I see you moving, right? Or appropriate time to say, God, thank you for what you're doing. God, I love you, right? So sometimes that'll take place through singing, like we did today. Sometimes it'll be through prayer or maybe an opportunity to take 5 minutes and just journal about their week, right? So there's going to be opportunities for worship. The other thing that you can pretty much count on is we're gonna play a game. We're gonna have some opportunity to have fun, to laugh a little bit. Some of it might be outside running around in the field, just because middle school students, it is good for you to get up and run around, right? Some of it might be some more mind games like trivia, working together as a group to accomplish something together, right? You're gonna have an opportunity to dive into the truth of God's word through a message from either myself or Ryan Lutz or John Keim or Matt Meyer, who's an incredible volunteer leader, or Joel Wolfgang, who's an incredible volunteer leader, or Ange Bryant, right? Have an opportunity to dive into the truth of God, but then to think, What does this have to do with me in 2020 right now because my friend just stopped talking to me over an argument that we had? Right? We're going to be talking about things like, John gave a little bit of a list earlier, but we're going to be talking about families. We're going to be talking about emotions. We're going to be talking about arguing or how to cope throughout this upcoming school year. Right? After that, we'll have an opportunity to meet in small groups. For middle school on a Sunday and for middle school on a Wednesday, you'll experience all of the singing, worship, the game, the message up front, and then you'll have time for small group to talk about what we just heard and listened to and then apply it to our lives. To share about what is going on in that space with people that we can trust, that we know care about us, right? For high school students, the small group option is an option, meaning that it'll take place after the programming from 6:30 to 7:30 on Sundays at the Granger campus. And it's optional because with some high school students, maybe if you were to invite a friend, maybe their next step isn't small groups right away, right? But say you invite them in September, and maybe by January they extend a hand and ask, hey, what are small groups about? I think I might want to take a step and try that, right? Within those small groups, you're going to experience a lot of what I had experienced when I was a high school student. A leader that is going to care for you. A leader that is going to be an ear to listen, right? A leader that will be able to answer some of your questions. And if they aren't able, they're smart enough to figure out, okay, what's the next step here? Who do we need to get in on this conversation, right? To help us all continue to take steps. So those are some of the regular things that you would experience within a weekly gathering. Now, it's not just always the same every single week. Those are some of the main things that you can expect. But in high school, maybe there's a special time to, at the end of a series, to reflect on the entire series that we've gone through that month. This past school year, we had the opportunity to write something down on a ceramic tile. Something that had been a burden for us, whether it was something that we were experiencing within the nation on the news, or maybe it was something that we were experiencing within our own personal lives in the lunchroom. But our high school students had the opportunity to write that down on a tile, to look at it, hear an encouraging and a hope-filled message about a God who wants to take those burdens, take those anxieties on, right? And at the end of the service, the high school students were able to take a hammer and look at that thing on that tile and smash it, understanding that God is taking it on now, right? So there will be instances for unique opportunities like that one, right? Now, middle school students and parents. High school students and parents, don't listen to me, okay? Look that way. Middle school students and parents. What to expect when your student gets out of the car, maybe for the first time to GSM. What, do you walk them in? Do they just go all by themselves? What happens? Middle school students and parents, listen in, because I'm gonna tell you what happens, okay? There's going to be a line of cones right out the front drive. What that does is it provides a safe lane where we know absolutely no cars, no bikes, no motorcycles, no Razor scooters, nothing is getting through that cone line. Because we want to make sure that your student is safe from the moment they leave your vehicle all the way in, right? So then what happens? They cross the cone barrier. Then they go into the sliding doors, and they're kind of frosted so you can't see in. Well, we have a greeting team. That's a part of our guest services team, which is an incredible team of student volunteers and adult volunteers who are there to make sure that your student knows that they are welcome. Welcome to be here. And if they want an elbow, that guest services member will give them a nice friendly hello elbow. Or if your student does not want an elbow, that guest services team member will be able to read and say, Billy probably does not want an elbow today. But a nice smile and a hello, Billy, I'm so glad you're here might just do the trick. So they'll be greeted on the way in, they'll come in the doors, and then we have the guest services circle right there. Again, trained guest service volunteers looking out for students, watching for students, making sure that if any student is lost in the store, that they find their way over to the guest services to check in, to find the name tag, right? Now, this is really important. As you're walking in, you might have noticed some stanchions in the atrium. Stanchions. They're about yay high. They've got a string that kind of pulls. Are we all together? Okay, stanchions. Those are really important because it designates an area where we know who's on the other side. It is students who have checked in, so they got a name tag, like the one that you might have on right now. And then leaders who will have a name tag. We know those people are allowed to be on this side of the stanchions. If myself, a guest service volunteer, or any other staff member sees someone without a name tag on this side of the stanchions, they're going to be politely stopped and politely asked, is there anything I can do for you? Are you with Granger Student Ministries by chance? And they might be, and we'll be like, how did you you don't have a name tag. We have to get you a name tag. And if they have no idea what's going on, we are going to politely ask them to be on the other side of the stanchions, in that atrium space, in the store area on the other side of the stanchions. Because we want to make sure that this is as safe of an environment as possible. Okay? All of those things apply for high school as well. Now, the other thing, you might be thinking, Riley, I am sitting in this auditorium right now, and everything looks spaced out, but there's some people that aren't in my family, and they're sitting near me, and we're not wearing a mask. What's gonna happen on September 13th with students in this room? On September 13th and beyond, every Sunday and Wednesday, whenever we are inside of a building, whether we are spaced out or not, inside of a building, we're gonna ask students to wear masks, okay? So, that is a lot of the nuts and bolts of what to expect on a Sunday and or a Wednesday, okay? If you're thinking, Riley, there's been a lot. We played a game I'm still thrown about the amount of money that you can win in a video game tournament. There's just been a lot, right? Well, a lot of the basic information, times, locations, a little bit what to expect on a Sunday or weekly gathering, or Wednesday weekly gathering, you can find at grangerchurch.com/students. The website is going to be a place where you can find upcoming information about events, right? So for the past couple of weeks or so, there has been a section about Vision Night. And it told you that it was from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the Granger campus in the auditorium, right? So if you're thinking, okay, what's coming up next? Make your way over to the website, find the events tab. All of the information for upcoming events will be in there, and it will be populated as the year goes on. The other couple of ways that you can catch up or stay on the front end of what is happening in Granger Student Ministries is following some of our social media pages. Our Facebook page, Granger Student Ministries, that will have a lot of some of the regular updates, okay, as well as our Instagram pages as well, Granger Students, okay? We also have a YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel, every week, we're going to be posting a little bit of a highlight from that weekly gathering for middle school and high school. So students, if you miss a weekend because of a sports tournament or a club that's happening, or you're just out of town, you can find maybe some of the highlights later that week on the YouTube channel, okay? We'll also be posting some random fun videos there periodically. Parents, a resource for you is the GSM, Granger Student Ministries podcast, which is available on Apple Podcast and Spotify. All you do is search Granger Student Ministries, and what that is simply the audio from the message of that week. Might be thinking, Riley, why would I want to listen to you for 25 minutes on a podcast? Well, it's not about listening to me. The hope is that while you are listening to what your student is listening to, it can help encourage further conversation. Who has experienced this? Hey, Billy, how was GSM? Good. Well, what'd you guys do? Games. Sang a little bit. Cool, Billy. Right? It's an opportunity to ask specific questions, and they'll be like, how do you know that that's what we talked about? Right? So that's the Granger Student Ministries podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify as well. Okay? That is about all I have as we look forward to this upcoming 2020-2021 school year. There's going to be a lot going on, which I'm really excited about, because there's opportunity all over the place for God to be moving in your family, in your students through you, right? As we gather together weekly. So, I'm going to pray, and then we have one more worship song that we're going to sing together. And then I think I'll be right back up here after we do that. But let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much again for this opportunity, for this space, this chance to be together, to hear a little bit about what is coming up in this next season for Granger Student Ministries. As we think of the opportunities that are going to be present for students to step in and use their gifts through serving, or for students to take a next step of stepping into a small group for the first time. God, we thank you for that. God, we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.